I'd like to call the city council workshop for August the 16th, 2022 at 4 o'clock. Ms. Sykes, will you call the roll?
Mr. Hill?
Here.
Mr. Jefferson?
Here.
Mr. Sampson?
Here.
Mayor Witt?
Here.
Mr. Dial?
Here.
Mr. Coverline?
Here.
Chief Butler?
Here. Ladies and gentlemen, the Lake City Council has opened its public meeting. Since 1968, the city code has prohibited any person from making personal, impertinent, or slanderous remarks or becoming boisterous while addressing the city council. Yelling or making audible comments from the audience constitutes boisterous conduct. Such conduct will not be tolerated. There's only one approved manner of addressing the city council, that is to be recognized and speak from the podium. As a reminder, persons are not to openly carry a handgun, carry a concealed weapon, or firearm while the governing body is meeting. Item 1 is general fund, CRA, fire, and airport. Mr. Dial.
Thank you, Mayor. First of all, I'd like to thank all the staff, all the team members, especially finance, Ms. Duncan, Ms. Taylor, and all their staff for the hard work and everything that we put into the budget. We knew we'd be facing some challenges this year with everything that's going on, the rising cost of materials, and trying to be fair to the employees and mindful of the tax money of the ratepayers. But we wanted to bring before you a budget that we think will be adequate to fund the city's needs and also what we believe will be fair to the employees. One of the things that I have proposed in this budget along with finance is a across the board raise of 6% to the employees. And also, you know, we know that the insurance cost is going up this year. And I would also like to propose to help out our employees that the city would cover that increase for this year. Because we know the cost of everything from fuel to food, to healthcare and everything's going up. So we tried to incorporate that into the budget as well for your consideration. And we're just glad that we were able to come up with a budget this year and look for any input that the council may have and any adjustments that we need to make.
We appreciate all the work y'all have done to put it together. So we're going from 60 million to 77. Where do y'all want to start at the fund summary? That's page 1.
Yeah.
Says local business tax occupational license is going from 41 to 98. Why would it go up that much?
Because that was the last year. Last year, we didn't have as much that we collected in the previous year, but this year, that's what it's expected to be, based on what we received.
And construction permits is going down.
Yes, sir, that's based on, you know, the fact that now the county is helping us out with permitting.
Gotcha. Anybody else got any questions on that page?
Mr. Mayor, one point that's important to notice here is that you mentioned the budget going up to the 70 million, but 9.7 million is investment earnings. If you look at page 3, that's the ARPA funds, the CARES funds, the City Hall surplus, the HACO fire grants, and the prior surplus.
Yeah.
Okay, y'all wanna go to the city council?
Mayor, do you want me to cover since I put the budget in? The one thing that I noticed is the salary, it stayed exactly the same. So I don't believe that we put in the 6%. I think we were looking for guidance on that, but we have researched the ordinance, and the ordinance, I think, is clear that the city council should get the same percentage that the annual compensation that's granted to general employees of the city. So would it be appropriate, whatever percentage rate is across the board for all staff members, we need to include that as well for the council?
Is that by ordinance or resolution?
That's by ordinance, and then the charter says that the council can amend their salaries by an ordinance. You have the authority to, set your salary by ordinance, but the code does say commencing fiscal year October 1, 1989, the annual compensation provided for herein shall be adjusted annually by that same percentage adjustment in annual compensation granted to general employees of the city.
I don't think we've done a raise years, I don't remember what we.
I know it ain't gone since I've been on council.
I think it's been at least, 13, maybe 13 years.
I didn't look at that schedule that I had sent you last year,
It's been a long
but
time.
really technically, there's only been like a 2% increase several years ago. And then, there were some merit increases in between. And then last year they did that, but then council voted not to give themselves a raise.
Last
So
year.
the question is whether or not you wanna put that in there for this year.
Yes.
Do that need to come as a motion?
We can.
No, it's just as a part of your regular, budget, if that's what you decide you want to do. Just need to make it known, and then we will make that adjustment.
Well, I think we are past due for a raise. Like I said, cause I've been on council at the end of this term here, it'll be 12 years. And, the council hadn't received a raise since I've been on council.
I support that. I've been on longer than Jake, and I can only remember once, maybe twice, that we got a raise since I've been. And whatever we get, I would support it be consistent with the general employee.
I
think we should follow the ordinance, whatever the ordinance says of the code. I think that makes the most sense to be consistent.
Okay,
And then you want me to kind of cover the
Yes.
things in here? Under, you'll see a substantial increase in professional services in the 31 account. I put in $30,000 for redistricting of the council districts. That is something that's critical that we get done as soon as the election is completed this year. So we will need to be working on that project. The other increase is in travel. The main reason for that is we went ahead and put the $9,000 for the city council travel allowance in there. It's usually done, I think, via amendment, so we just went ahead and just line itemed it there to make it more consistent. There's also a little bit of increases in the other line items of travel, since we will have some new council members coming aboard. They will need the emo training and probably would like to attend some of the other conferences that we do have board members attend throughout the year. So that's part of that increase as well. Down in the 48 account, under promotional activities, I did add a new line item in there, $2,000 for a community shred-it day. I'm not exactly sure if that will be enough funds to cover this. I thought it might be a nice gesture for the city to maybe do a community shred-it day. We can work with Terry Phillips if you prefer, or would like us to maybe help get that done. So people maybe could drop off a box or two of shredding as a community project. And then training subsequent to the travel account, that went up as well for the additional members coming aboard. And if you have any other questions about any other line items, I'll be glad to answer those for you.
anybody have any other ones? All righty, we'll get the city manager.
And on this one, if I might add, Mayor, on the other current charges, you know, the biggest thing that change you see is that 21,170. And a lot of that is for Ms. Phillips. As you know, with our events and stuff that she's putting on, you know, the movie night, different things like that.
Right.
Been a real big hit for the community. And that's one of the major rises in expenses within the city manager since she falls under that department.
Yeah, those have been a success.
So I was waiting for you to get to that part. So the Christmas trees, are these the ones that look like a fountain that's gonna be out in the middle of the lake?
Yes, the lighted trees that
Didn't we have one out there a few years back, out in the middle of that lake? A tree.
Yeah, people online won't be able to hear her responses. I'm sorry. Sorry, Terry.
Oh,
Yes, it's been out, it's been many years ago that they're the ones that float out in the lake. with
Yeah.
lights. A lot of people have asked for them to return, and I just think that would be good to have those out there.
Anything else?
I'm good with me.
All right. City clerk.
There was one item that I just learned about today that I did not put in the budget that I would like to ask for it to be put in the budget. I do have a staff member that is working towards her AS degree, and she will be completing that in May of next year. And I would like to add a 3% in there for her when she completes that. That won't be until next May, so it'll only be about, yeah, it won't just be just a few months, so I'm not really sure. I think it'll be about 880 hours, about maybe 11 pay periods is what I'm thinking, but, from like May to end of September.
Right.
When I calculate it out, it's not going to be very, a substantial amount of money, but I do know that finance likes to make sure that the amounts are budgeted as well as HR before any increases are granted. So I did just learn that she's planning on finishing that degree by May, so I would ask that we add in just a little bit extra to cover a 3% for, and I can tell you the staff member's name later if you guys are okay with that. I can let finance know them.
I got any problem with that? All right.
The other increases in the budget that you'll see, substantial increases, travel. There's a little bit extra in travel this year. We are doing some cross-training, making sure that everybody in the department has the FIRMA certification, so we're starting that process. Nikki just obtained her certification this year. We're very proud of her for doing that, and we want to start the deputy on that as well. The other increase is down in book subs and subscriptions and memberships, and that is, let me back up to operating expenses, hubs and subs. The fitness stipend that's in my contract historically has not been a line item in the budget since it is a new contract from last year. So that is a journal entry into that account every month, so I went ahead and listed it as a line item in the budget. The membership dues did go up because we are, like I said, trying to make sure everybody is in the office, with the exception of the admin for right now, are members of PhRMA. And then underneath the 55 account, under operating expense training, ethics training, we did recently do an ordinance that says our positions will have ethics training, so we did add that into the budget, as well as some additional PhRMA training to make sure everybody can get that. I also put in there tuition assistance. I would like to go back and try to finish up my degree, and so I did put in a little bit of money in there for that. I want to take 4 classes in the next 12 months, so that is that amount of money that I put there, the $1,236. And those were the main increases that we had in our budget this year.
Any questions on the city clerk? All right. Let's go to procurement. Wait, what's next? Human resources.
Mayor, I noticed, human resources have, training, but they don't have anything in for travel. Is that training gonna be here in-house, or are they in fact gonna have travel? Or is it included in the training amount?
Actually, it'll be through the society, it's business management, it's online training. It's an online program. It's actually, it's online, but it's also teacher-led programs for all three.
Okay. That answers it. Thank you.
The contractual service, the compensation analysis, that's a salary analysis for the,
Correct. 8 HR, we contracted with them to do a compensation analysis to juxtapose our compensation levels here in the city with surrounding municipalities. We started that. It should end by the end of September. Their goal is to have it done for us by the beginning of October.
and the insurance went down quite a bit. What was that from?
Insurance went down because we didn't use as much as we thought we were going to last year, so I decreased.
Okay,
So I wasn't paying. What did go up though, because of turnover, we're actually doing more background checks, more pre-employment drug screenings, and those costing individually are going up as well. There's also an affirmative action plan, that's the AAP that you see there. Executive Order 11246 says that we need to have an affirmative action plan if we have over 50 employees and over $50,000 received contractually from the federal government. And this incremental for $10,000 receipt of funds from the federal government. We haven't had one since 2019, and we have to have one on a continuing basis, so we're lagging behind there. We want to get caught up on that and begin to do the right thing just in case the UFCCP calls us. And so that's what you're seeing there under AAP,
okay.
7,500.
Anybody got any more questions for Human Resources? Thank you very much.
Yes, sir.
Okay, legal. I got a question on legal. We did that kind of last night.
Mayor, if no one has a question, I do have one quick question.
Sure.
On page 6, under the council's budget, I have put in paralegal services for special meetings and $1,800. That amount of money is what we had paid last year for dictation services for paralegal to attend our special meetings. Do you want to leave it in the council's budget, or do you want to move that over into the legal? I didn't even think about that whenever I was preparing the council's budget, that maybe it should be in legal. I don't know, what do you think?
Donna, what do you think?
Leave it where it is.
Leave where it's at?
Yeah.
It's just for the shade meetings, right?
Yes.
Yeah.
That's what we had spent last year.
It's just that whenever you go to do a purchase order, you just need to remind yourself it's gonna be in that account.
In my account, sure.
there any questions on the legal budget?
I don't. Anybody got any?
I think,
I don't.
if I may comment, I think you're gonna see the legal budget continue to increase if you continue to slash the training of the procurement and HR departments. It appears that the HR department slashing it by 300% and procurement by almost 50%. Those two departments alone probably equate to more than 20% of the legal questions, and that's just by the nature of their department. However, the procurement department, that's where your contracts are initiated and procured and executed, and then eventually they're enforced. But your insurance policy does not cover contract disputes. You learned that in a terrible way back in 2016, when the city paid over $600,000 in legal expenses to be right, meaning that a jury awarded the plaintiff that was suing the city $0. I believe the city recovered a little over $100,000, and so I suppose that's a net loss of about $450,000. If you take one of those every 10 years, then it'll make these HR and procurement training budget line items look smaller than peanuts, maybe flax seeds. The procurement can help lower your legal costs, as well as HR can do the same, by going to training and then training up the directors. They would then have less questions, and I believe that your system of procurement and HR would be more streamlined. We see this with other local government clients, and this is not a new statement. I think I've made it the past 2 years. But until you're training those departments, and then they can do a residual training to the department directors and or individuals that they contact with, you're going to see an increase in legal costs because you're going to need more and more legal questions answered by the attorney. Other liabilities are public records requests and sunshine issues. However, those were recently addressed in your ordinance that you passed in 2022-2229, which mandates training within 90 days on public records and sunshine laws by all appointed officials. I've asked the city administration to see if they can get the directors to go through that training also, and that would also help issues, at least reduce the liability there. But your procurement and HR, if you continue to slash that training there, and then they are not able to provide residual training to the other departments, you can see these legal budgets going up by tens of thousands every year. Those are my comments on that.
Thank you. Anybody else have any comments on that? Okay, let's see. Next is non-departmental. Anybody got any questions on that? All right, if no questions, we'll move on to the next one, I believe is finance. Page 26. Donna, you got anything else on that,
I'm sorry.
on the finance budget?
No, other than you see the salaries increasing and potentially we would like to this year try to hire a assistant finance director. So obviously that's gonna increase the budget. Now, we have slashed our employees from 7 to 5 over the last 2 to 3 years, which is why it was lower last year, but you know, now we have people within the department who are moving upwards, and so that's what the increase is for. And if you will notice, and nobody's asked this question, but I wanted to point it out, under the retirement contributions, those are going down. They're only gonna go down for 1 year because we have a savings this year because last year our retirement contributions for the general employees was $785,000. This year it's dropped to $75,000 because the market did so well, but there's no guarantee it's gonna be like that next year, as you know, because the market is fluctuating right now. So, but that's the reason that all of the retirement accounts, that anybody who has general pension, that it's gone down like that. Other than that, there's really nothing else in my budget. Pretty much everything is straightforward. The only reason that it went down under the other current charges is because every 2 years I have to do what is called an OPEB study, which is other pension employment benefits. And so what that is for the health insurance that we have to actually have that calculated by the actuary in order to put that liability on the books. So we don't have to do it, but I will have to do it in, not next year, coming up, but the next year. This year, actually, we'll have to do that.
Anybody got questions on finance? Okay, next is the IT. On the IT, I see that the employees are going from 5 to 4. Is that when you took over that responsibility?
Yeah, that's when I took over, so,
That's what I was thinking.
yeah, that's the networking thing that we discussed earlier this year at
Right.
the council meeting. Correct.
I see the professional service, it stayed the same.
Correct.
That professional service, what is that?
It's a group of things, but it's basically if we need a expert opinion or some assistance with a project, they typically charge by the hour, or sometimes they'll charge by the project if it's something really straightforward.
Okay.
But it covers, like, if we have to go outside of the IT department and hire, let's say, a specialist with something very specific. So we can pay them without having to come to the council for money, because it can get pricey depending on the length of the project and what it involves. But that basically covers our whole year if we need any outside assistance in that.
And I say repairs and maintenance went about half.
That was my question.
Yeah.
What was the question?
Repairs and maintenance dropped substantially.
Correct. It's gonna fluctuate year to year on what projects we do.
Yeah.
So that covers all the projects we plan to do. This current budget year we're in, there's a lot of projects in the current budget year we're in. We're still underway with them, on track, but it's not always good to do that amount of projects year after year, because I'd rather do what we plan well than throwing a whole bunch at the board and half doing a bunch of projects. So I might come next year and that might go up depending on what the city needs. But we did a lot of the networking projects and paid for them in this year's budget. There's some kind of cleanup work on next year, like with the routers, but that's a much lower cost than, for example, replacing all the switches in the city, the network rebuild we've been doing, the camera project, all that kind of stuff. A lot of that's in capital, but some of the stuff in repairs and maintenance fits into those projects as well, because we might need to replace smaller equipment in order to make it work for the whole project.
What about the tower, the FHP tower? I thought we were near the end of life on that. Are we still maintaining that?
Yes, we're still maintaining the tower. We're actually in the middle of, currently this year, in the middle of upgrading the lighting system on it because it's so old that we have a tower light out, so it's not by choice that we're upgrading it, but they actually don't make the parts anymore for that. And the specific light they're using, it's an old non-LED light, and we can't get them anymore. So to comply with the FAA, we need to get a new light up there, which involves basically upgrading the control board to get the new light. So we are still maintaining it actively.
Anybody got any questions? Thank you very much. Next is procurement. You got anything you want to point out to us?
We have put in the budget a full-time procurement clerk. However, due to upcoming circumstances, we may not need that clerk. But I don't know what's gonna happen yet, so that's what's in there. Then we have room for 3 people in our office. So, I'm not sure we'll need that 4th person.
Okay. Anybody got any questions? Okay. Thank you very much. Vehicle maintenance. Mr. Dowd, does the enterprise thing seem to still be working pretty good?
I have a lot of opinion on the enterprise system we use. This probably is not really the best place to discuss that.
Well, you and I feel the same way. So would it be better if the city, instead of keep leasing these vehicles, just buy them as they leases up, or just continue to lease them? I mean, you know, you just say what you said, but.
Well, I mean, if you're asking me a direct question, Mr. Hill, my take on it is, we're trading in a lot of vehicles, at times that only have anywhere from, I've seen some go back with just a few thousand miles on. Now, these are the smaller pickups. Now, the big 550s and anything over a 550, we have to buy outright anyway, like our big crane trucks and things like that. The pickups and that end, to answer your question, yes, I think that we should buy those and build up our fleet with those. A lot of these vehicles, I traded one in not too long ago. Right, we was just getting broke in. Now, the big 550s and things like that, those can still be considered to be looked at to be leased in some fashion or way, because those are heavy-duty trucks that get used all the time, that rack up a lot of miles. But the small pickups and stuff that we use and the other vehicles, in my estimation, the city should own those outright.
I know, I just noticed the other day, some new pickup trucks. And it seemed like, the ones that we're getting rid of, seem like we should be buying them. Because they don't look like when I see them, they look like they're hurt.
Most of the vehicles, especially the pickups that we get in now, the 550s and stuff like that, they do get beat up a little bit more because you're constantly moving big equipment with them. You're have stuff in the beds, you got the tool bodies, but the small pickups and along those lines, very few of those ever go back with more than maybe a few scratches, maybe a small ding or something like that in them. Basically, they're still almost brand new vehicles when they get turned back in. And if something happens like, we have the problem this year where, most vehicles right now are about a year out, even trying to get anything, or even the dealerships and everything. So a lot of these vehicles still have plenty of miles left on them, especially that it will be my recommendation, well, not my recommendation, but I just don't think the way the enterprise system is set up right now with all the vehicles, there's certain ones that, yes, we do need to lease, but the majority of them, our pickups and stuff, we don't need to be leasing those vehicles. We need to own those outright.
Yeah, well, that's my thought, the ones that we can own, let's just go ahead and own them outright. And the ones that we have to lease, continue to lease them.
Mr. Jefferson remembers back before we got into this, we had some of the pickups were 20 years old, falling apart, and so the maintenance was just ungodly. So it got better, but I think it's something that we need to look. We've done it the other way where we had old vehicles, now we've got this. So I think maybe it's time to look at it and see what we need to do all the way across the board and see what we want to do.
Go ahead, I'm sorry.
Last year, I tried to arrange for Enterprise to come out and speak to you so that you could understand the program and benefits. But I was denied that option. And they still want us to do that. So I don't know if that would help you understand the program better, and how it works. If you want me to arrange that, I'd be happy to do that.
I would want to arrange that, but again, I'm stuck on, the city owning vehicles outright instead of just continuing to lease them, where that money that we're spending on leasing the vehicles, we can put some of that money back in repairing them. I don't know too much about the auto repair shop, the mechanics that we have now, but these vehicles, they're built a little better than they were years ago. So you can get more wear and tear out of them and just constantly rotating them out.
I know that the program was initially done because they wanted to get rid of aging vehicles.
Right.
Yes, they do have better vehicles now than they did back then, and they continue to get better. And then all these computer parts too, that also you have to worry about. Typically, when we turn in a vehicle, it can get anywhere from $8,000 to you've seen it go up to like $16,000 maybe that we get back on our account. But like I said, if you want to listen to it, they can come in, give you a slideshow and tell you, explain the program, it's up to you. That's what you'll be doing.
Yes, and again, a lot of that reflects back to mechanics as well. Well, they're having the computers, whatever they need to diagnose the problem with these. So if you could schedule that, I would.
Right now, our fleet department is not very big.
Yeah, correct.
Yeah, we have to make some Okay, anything else under vehicle maintenance?
Well, also on that too, Mr. Hill, if I could add to that, and, well, we would, need to beef up our, fleet department a little bit. But the issue that a lot of the stuff that I have is we pay a lease on these vehicles, but yet the city still ends up paying for most all anything that happens to them. And if we're gonna do that, we might as well own the vehicle outside of, the big 550s. I think those we would try to need to have some kind of lease or work something out different from those. But these pickups and all, my experience with having to deal with Enterprise when we have a vehicle that messes up, they do everything they can to basically come back and say it's the city's fault, that the truck wasn't operated correctly. I had one a few years ago, it was a 4-wheel drive, that the transmission went out. Well, they wanted the city to pay it because they said it was the city's fault, because it was out of the spray field. And they said they found water in the transmission. Well, it's a 4-wheel drive, if that's the case. But just things like that. If we end up having to pay thousands of dollars to repair these vehicles on top of the lease amounts, I just don't see the benefit of it myself. And I've never understood it, and I never had it explained to me in a way that makes any sense that we're actually saving money doing it this way. Now, Enterprise people can come and convince me of that. That'd be a different story, but just the dealings with them alone with the vehicles when we have issues with them, I have an issue with as well.
Yeah, and just to follow up on that, as far as our fleet maintenance, we only have 2 employees in there. And one drives the loop truck that goes out into the field to service equipment in the field, so that we don't have to transport everything back. That only leaves 1 technician in there. So the decision to do whatever we do with Enterprise, to your point, Mayor, I remember those days as well. We had 20-year-old vehicles, but we had Mr. Curry running the office. We had Sam in there. We had Rashad. We had Quincy. We had Peanut. So we had 5 or 6 technicians in there, where now we're down to 2. So just be mindful of that if we do move forward with Enterprise. When 1 technician leaves to go to the field to do fleet, that leaves 1 mechanic in there to cover everything for the city. So that's not in this budget currently to house that. So just a caveat for that.
And I think we just need to analyze it and make the best decision we can. Thank you, and get the input from everybody that has to deal with it.
Mayor, let me throw a question out there for, maybe someone can answer that, maybe not. But on a new vehicle, is the factory warranty on it voided just by mere of it being a leased vehicle, or that still goes until, most vehicles come with 36,000 miles factory warranty on it? Where do that fits? Is that a benefit to us?
Still has factory.
Yeah, so they have the factory warranty. It's where they get us at is if it needs a battery, or if it needs small components, and dependent to Mr. Dial's point, which vehicle it is. Some vehicles we have to carry, some of the new ones we have to carry all the way back to Star, just to get minor repairs. Some have to go to the Ford dealership in Live Oak. So as that plays out, that reoccurring cost, but as far as I know, they all come with warranties. It's just as you get the small maintenance, it starts to get cost effective, that I've seen since I've been over fleet. Is that correct, Gary?
Well, most of that new warranty comes on as a bumper-to-bumper warranty.
Yeah, most
So of course, it doesn't cover batteries, because
Right.
I got caught in that too,
Right,
the
right.
battery. But to me, that's something kind of minor. But if we have that air condition goes out, or like Mr. Dahl said, the transmission goes out, I'm not sure how many miles it has on it, but if it has 20,000, less than 36,000 miles on it, we should not have to eat that cost.
And that's correct. And what we have found, just similar to his situation, the first thing they want to do is try and pass blame, if that's the correct verbiage, is to say, did the city do this, or was it actually under warranties? A lot of them they cover. I have found that it's better for me to go to the dealership and question the repair, because we've been able to actually figure out that it was in fact a warranty issue. So I do believe they warranty most what they can, but they are, they question a lot of it. And again, to the 550s are probably the ones that get beat up the most, because they're hauling excavators and the guys are getting out of the mud and getting in them. So those trucks, physically, they look worn out compared to some of the other trucks. The F-150s, the smaller vehicles that don't get used as much, for example, doing shut-offs, turn-offs, stuff like that for water, they never go off of the paved road. Those trucks look new when we're turning them in. So I believe the warranty is working. It's just the components in between it. We've had turbos go out where they've had to pull cabs. In that case, we have to put it on a low boy, we have to haul it to the dealership. So there is a reoccurring cost. In that same regard, to Mr. Hill's point, how many we have in our facility, in our warehouse to be, or our mechanic shop to be able to replace that, we don't have the staff to replace it right now, so it would be a moot point. It would have to go to the dealership. So we would need to really analyze it before we make a decision.
Really, we do.
Thank you. Okay, the next one is general building. Ms. Dow, have you heard any more on their assessment of this building?
We are still awaiting the quotes, to follow, the, procurement procedure. And we are having, difficulty getting those quotes back. And me and Ms. Johnson spoke about this earlier today. It might just get down to the point to where we just need to go ahead and say they were non-responsive on one of them.
Right.
The other one is wanting to do a full, assessment on the building, visits and everything else to give a quote, which is the correct way to do it if they're going to do it. So that's basically what we're waiting on now. And the rate it's going right now, there really is no timeline when they're going to give us that information.
Okay, anybody have any questions on that general building? Alrighty. All right, the police department. I'll say you got 67, how are we as far as being able to fill those?
Currently, I have, well, we're in the process of hiring another one, so when that is done, we will have 2 openings on the department. Currently, I have 8 officers in training in the FTO program. One of them's actually still at the academy. With that, once they finish the program, again, we'll have 2 openings. I'm working with the fire chief and city manager of the county and the sheriff on the consolidation of the dispatch center. That seems to be progressing. Right now, one of the delays is infrastructure. We're waiting for the fiber lines. Actually, the sheriff's department was over at the public safety building the other day, putting in with IT for his backup records management system, and the sheriff's agreed to house ours. We are working on our MOU with the county, how it's gonna work. Met with Mr. Dial and county manager the other day, going over the issues. Nothing seems insurmountable. With the city growing, one of the things I did not do is I did not put into the budget increase in officers. What I would like to do is sometime probably in January, the savings that we realized from consolidating dispatch, I'd like to come back to the county and get those reallocated into sworn officers so I get more officers on the road without increasing the budget of the police department. So that's my current plan.
Okay, anybody got any questions?
So with that, so you're thinking that the consolidation of the dispatch will be by the end of the year roughly?
Right now, with the fire chief and everything, and unless there's something that happens with the infrastructure, right now, I believe right after the first of the year is when you're gonna see a hard date when we're gonna be moving over there. I'd like to get it done sometime right after the holidays, so we can start working on that. I know, I don't wanna speak for the fire chief, but right now it seems like the plan is the fire department will move over there first, make sure our CAD, computer-aided dispatch and the RMS is working properly, and then once we're sure that's working, and then PD will move over there with the rest of the dispatchers.
I think it makes sense. I think too, by transition that, depending on what the final number for the county is, which I don't think we have yet, do we?
Now with Mr. Dial being the permanent city manager, I think we can start moving forward on that part of it, but that would fall under his purview, not mine. But again, I think that the consolidation of dispatch, somebody calls 911, it's a one-stop shop, they're not transferring from the county over to us. God forbid there's an emergency, you don't have to explain twice what's going on. And the way the dispatch centers are set up, the police dispatchers and the sheriff's office dispatchers are sitting right next to each other, as are the fire dispatchers. So in a major incident, everybody's in the same room communicating, and it's gonna be at a less cost to the city.
Chief, I noticed your operating supplies is up roughly 170,000 above last year. What primarily accounts for that?
We've got some items, the Motorola post-warranty maintenance is in there now. That's almost $19,000. The automatic license plate reader system, we have to pay the annual subscription now. That's close to $7,000. And then there's other items that were brought in. The bidirectional antenna that was put into the public safety building. The officers' radios were not working inside the building because of the metal roof. We had to put a bidirectional antenna inside the building, and there's a $2,000 a year service on that. So there's a lot of different, and I believe, Matt, is the cell phones in that?
Yes.
That included. Also, every officer now has a department-issued cell phone. That was anticipating us moving over to the county for dispatch, so we don't have to have a switchboard set up anymore. So that's all incorporated into that increase.
Yeah, I see that, I think 300,000 is fuel.
We were at 175, it was reduced to 125 a couple of years ago. When we were doing the calculations, we were looking at possibly $5 to $6 a gallon for fuel. I believe right now we're online for about 175 to 200,000. Using that up, that'll be this year's how much we used in fuel. So I've actually had to stop other projects to make sure that we had money. If the price stays somewhere where it is, that's gonna be more than I need. But at the time, we were, the common thing was we're gonna look at about $6 a gallon. Luckily, that didn't happen, but again, that's the lifeblood of the police department. I need the fuel.
We had that a few years ago where the fuel price was jumping up there, and we had, in fact, at one time, we had to deal with Hunter. And I think they used to do it once a week or every couple of weeks to the price, and they got to where they were doing it every twice a week.
I passed by, this has nothing to do with the budget, but I passed by the police / fire station the other day, and one of your patrol cars, they had it up on some type of a ramp. Was they doing something special to that vehicle?
Yeah, every 6 months we have to calibrate the speedometers, the radar units. So the company comes in, they go up, they get the car up to a speed, they make sure the speedometer is calibrated, and then they test our radar and laser units to make sure everything's compliant. That's required by the state for us to do enforcement.
Oh, I thought you was getting a special patrol car.
Not that time.
Anybody got anything else?
Mayor, if I could, Chief, I was asked the other day, and I just want to get clarification, or if you could give the council clarification on the corporals. Because, you know, it's not in the position list, but I've had some inquiries as to, you know, individuals being called corporals, but we don't have any within the thing. Could you maybe explain that to the council on what we need to do or move forward?
Sure. The corporal position falls within a patrolman's rank. The grades for patrolmen are grade 10, 11, and 12, depending on the specialty patrolmen are grade 11. That would be our 84-hour, the traffic unit, and similar. It's not a rank, it's a position within patrol, but it does give them supervisory responsibility. One of the reasons I did that is 10 of the officers are brand new. I need more supervisors on the road. The responsibilities of the road sergeant between doing all his administrative duties, all the paperwork he needs to do, there's just not enough time for him to actually be out there supervising. Also, the city's been getting so busy, we have more than one thing going on at a time. So the corporal is there. I did not make that a rank because if they transfer to the detective bureau or they go somewhere else, I don't want it to make it look like they were demoted. So that is a specialty position, the same as a CIU, the same as a traffic unit where they have specialized training. So that's how the corporal rank was, or corporal position was put in there, still within the patrol rank.
Anybody else got anything? Thank you very much. I think there's risk safety.
Hold on, Mayor. If they're doing that within the same rank, do they have to have separate job descriptions? Typically, you would have a new job description for that position, right? And wouldn't finance and HR have to allocate that, know how many to allocate for that so they know where to put them?
The job description was sent over to HR. That was sent over before we did it. The position is grade 11. That's already an existing position within the patrolman rank. So it did not create another grade. They just moved up 2 steps.
Donna, does that have to be, do they have to approve the new position? Does it say corporal on it?
No, they're patrolmen. They're still patrolmen.
Okay.
It's just like the investigators are still patrolmen. So we just call them investigators. They have specialized duties.
Yeah, we bind those out separately, that's why I was asking. When you have police investigator in here,
Yeah, we didn't create a new, that falls within the patrolman. They're still, what we did is we took in the patrol staffing, you have the sergeant, you have 4 officers, there were 3 zones and a rover. That rover became the corporal. So that's basically where it is. It still falls within that position. There's no change in classification.
so it's not really a promotion.
It's a position within the patrolman rank.
Okay. I saw the reason why I'm asking so many questions about it is I saw the promotion thing that came out.
We promoted a sergeant. Del Castillo was promoted at the same time as the 4 corporals.
Okay.
The officers consider it a rank.
Yeah.
It's a supervisory position, but for staffing purposes, it is a position within the patrolman's rank.
I just want to make sure we were good with the union and made sure we were good with the position.
The union's fine with it. They,
Okay.
I've discussed it with them. They know what's going on. They're fine.
Okay. I was just making sure you were covered.
See, Mr. Donald, safety risk management, is anybody in that position now, or you can feel that?
Yes, Mr.
Okay,
Smith.
okay.
How you doing, Mayor? My name is Dean Smith. I am the new risk safety manager for the city of Lake City.
All right. Anybody got any questions on the budget for that? Pretty straightforward to me. Anything you wanna say about it?
Yes, sir.
What you say your name again? I'm sorry.
My name is Dean Smith.
My name is me and Mr. Smith met at the elevator a few days ago. I said, Mr. Dean, could you open, I didn't know his name at the time. I said, could you open this door for me? Who are you? And again, I told him I appreciate that. Just didn't open for anybody. So,
Yeah.
again, he walked the whole building, I guess, and found me. And we was formally introduced. So,
Actually, sir, you asked me to open the door and I asked you who you wanted to see. And you said anybody I wanted to, and I said, and I will not open this door for you. But it was nice to meet you.
yeah. So you know who?
Yes, sir. I've met most of them in passing. Haven't sit down and spoken with everyone individually. Probably had more time with you.
But again, it's nice meeting you again.
Thank you, sir.
Glad to hear you.
Keep up the good work.
Anybody else got any questions on that?
That's pretty solid.
Thank you.
All right. Public Works.
Yep.
All right. All the positions are staying pretty, the same.
Yes, sir, we don't have any major position changes. Pending the discussion about the fleet, that may be something that comes up later on. We added The only thing that was really worth noting, we did add 20,000 in our 46 account for Teen Town for the maintenance. That's not for the events. So we put that line item in there so that we could track how much maintenance is going into our facilities. So that was added in there. The biggest thing that we need to probably cover, and I'm gonna need direction from you guys, is in our 63 accounts. Most everything with the exception of the fuel and Teen Town stays pretty much the same. But we're having a major issue with the asphalt contracts. The price of asphalt, the price of fuel going up like it is, we're getting quotes on road repairs that everybody had requested. And the quotes are, by the time we get to see the project come to pass, the quotes are no good. So most everything we've done, Mr. Jefferson and I've talked about this on Patterson Street, has a grant. The grant's finally coming to pass, and now the quote versus the grant are not lining up anymore. So that's gonna be a major issue going forward. We got $941,000 worth of road repair in here. We cannot continue to overlay roads. It's not the correct way to do it, especially if it has gutter. What's allowing is the asphalt is getting too high, the stormwater is jumping the curb, it's flooding people's property. We're just running into other problems. We have to mill these roads. So the cost associated with that is different than just overlaying a road. We've got several roads in a couple of districts now that we're having to go back to and talk to homeowners, and they're not very happy with us because there really is not a clear-cut answer other than to mill the road after we've paid Anderson already pave it. In your budget there, you see that there's a number of roads in here. Alexandria Camp, the entrance of Chapel Hill, Grandview, James Montgomery, and Rossboro. I had my superintendent, and this is no scientific methodology, we just went out and looked at the condition of the road, and we scored those roads per Mr. Dial on what we thought was, as far as what road was worse. James Montgomery, up in front of the church, we just had another safety incident tonight while we were in here. Another vehicle struck potholes and we have a blown tire. This is the second one in the last couple of weeks. That went before council last year. Everybody had an appetite to repave it, but we put it in the budget. I believe it was in for around 30,000 or so. The cost to repave that road this year is 60,000. So that's what we're referring to as far as that. But just real quick, James Montgomery would probably be the worst. Camp and Marsh would probably be the second. Alexandra, there's some major flooding in that area, and the condition of that road and that intersection is in very poor shape. Rossboro Court is rough. It is rough, but it is a small road. It only feeds a small cul-de-sac. Grandview, and then the entrance of Chapel Hill. That, again, is just a recommendation. It is not how we have to do that, but if you were to go in and look at the condition of the road, those were the worst ones that we went and looked at. So that is something that I'm definitely gonna need some direction on moving forward, because that 941,000, you're just at $1 million. It realistically could bust that before we ever get through tonight. Anderson has called us. We looked at paving all of Edie Street. We got a $15,000 quote to do the rough portion. We still don't have the quote back to do the whole road. So we're having a hard time with that, a really hard time with that. So we will need direction on that.
Is Alexandra the one that's off Grandview that goes back in there?
Yes, sir.
That's the one with the gentleman that we're flooding every time it rains.
Yes. And we're looking at getting with Swanee River Water Management. We met with them today to see if we can do something with the retention pond. So we're looking at solving the whole problem, but the intersection, it floods every time it rains, and it's getting to where it's becoming a problem in his house.
What's the difference in cost in doing overlay or the milling?
It's significant. I mean, you're talking $10,000 to $20,000 depending on the length of the project. So, but the issue we're having now is they overlaid a lot last year, and now that when you get these heavy storm events or weather events come through, the water's rushing so fast and the curb is now so small because the asphalt has got higher. When it hits that curb, it's jumping the curb. In many cases, we've actually hurt ourselves. And that's what we're finding now. We've got a handful that have called in, one being a city employee, Mr. Greg's son, working at the fire department. Same thing at his house. We got overlaid Now it's jumping and going down his driveway and it's eroding the back of his property. That's just one example of why we've got to start milling these roads. So again, this is just a recommendation. I know we want to do all of them, but I would rather do one or two correct than just throw a patch at a bunch of them.
So these recommended ones are recommended to overlay, or should they be milled?
Yes, sir.
So these are the ones you recommend to mill, or
Sir?
these are the ones you recommend to mill?
Yes, sir. I would recommend milling them. That keeps the asphalt at the same height. When it was engineered for the curb to work for the stormwater purposes, when we go in and overlay it, they put 2 to 3 inches of asphalt on top of it. That lessens that curb. So when we do have a weather event, the curb in the gutter is not working correctly. There's several issues with that. So that is really the biggest issue as far as going forward, knowing that the 941,000, as I stand here, I've got these quotes over the past couple of months. There's a good chance that the quotes are already under what Anderson could come in and do it for. So that was the reason Mr. Dial basically said, if we've got them all on there, let's look at the ones that are the worst and see if we can get some of those hit, and then we may have to put some more in next year. Again, that's just a recommendation.
But there's no way you can kind of like.
No, sir. I can answer that, no, sir. That's what we got last year. And when you have, like I say, every citizen is important, every citizen's property is important. And we field these calls every day. We field them every single.
Well, I think the most traveled is probably the most important in this budget, but I mean, that little overlay on James Montgomery you're talking about, that's heavily traveled.
That is a very heavily traveled area.
So.
And we've had 2 safety issues off of that in the last couple of weeks.
And then looking how small the one on Chapel Hill is, that seems like it'd be easy, but I know Grandview's a lot longer, but I'd like to know what the traffic on that is compared to some of the other ones too. But I think that's a very heavily traveled road.
Well, Edie is as well.
Yeah, that's what I'm saying.
That one's not even on here.
It's not on the list, but it's a heavily traveled road.
Yeah, Edie
I'd
come
probably that
about
one.
later in the discussion, and Mr. Dial and I talked about that later on, and that's what I was saying, it's taking us so long to get these quotes, because they're not wanting to quote us, because we know we're gonna be a year out from being able to do construction. Not any reason not to get the quote, they're giving them to us, but we just know there's gonna be issues. And as long as they're city streets, the police department has worked with us very well, they've been very accommodating to do traffic counting, so I'm sure that given time to get that in their schedule, they could, and if we want to use that as a defining factor, that may be the best way as far as methodology.
Well, it might be the fairest way, because if you start just picking this road or that road, then people are gonna call us saying, hey, why'd you pick this road with 10 people on it, and this road gets 2,000 people
And
on it?
that's a very fair question. Like I say, this is just, we basically looked at the condition of the road, not the quantity, not the traffic, not how many houses on the road. We just went out and looked at it. Like I say, we've had 2 busted tires in 2 weeks. Obviously, Montgomery is.
It's bad, that one's really, really bad.
Yeah, and it's like you say, it's in more of the middle part of town, so you're gonna.
Well, you cut from Bay to 90 on it,
A lot.
back and forth, so. The other one is that one on Alexandra where we're flooding the guy. There might be something we could do to stop that temporarily, or?
We done some repair on it the other day, and I do not have the report back from Sweetwater Water Management. We met with them this afternoon to get recommendation. Ultimately, we need to get the stormwater, the pond in the back. We need to get that addressed.
Yes.
So that's a cause and effect there. And we're working aggressively.
I know Junior Woolard had a plan on some of that too, with some of that,
Yeah,
getting the mats and.
Then that's what we done. We basically took the plans that we had to Swanee River Water Management, because ultimately we don't want to get into their waterway and it become an issue. They get very upset about that.
When you talk about these, are there any FDOT grants available now? I mean, I see there's about to be a whole lot of money available for infrastructure, it looks like. That there was a bill signed today, the feds are gonna be freeing up some money, so I don't know if there's something we could get there.
This is one that the same thing, the DOT grants, these GO grants that I talked to Shannon about the other day when we met, to start looking into those for us on some of these roads, so.
I mean, I think I would be foreseeing the count and just saying, going by that, because I mean, the most used should get the highest priority, wherever it is, whether it's Edie or.
Yeah, I'll agree with the count, because the count's not gonna lie. Instead of just saying, well, this road gets more
Yeah, we've used those traffic studies. Again, the police department's done a phenomenal job helping us with that. We've used that to kind of solve a couple of issues in the past. So that's definitely fair. So what it would look like then, if you were to leave that sum of money in there, we would have to work with finance and them on which road we fix based on that study. So that line item may change. We wouldn't have to come do a reallocation of funds, would we? Okay. So yeah, that
But do you want me to take out the word overlay?
Yes, please.
Yeah, I think I agree with that. I mean, those overlays got us in trouble. I think part of the problem is our last, your predecessor didn't explain that piece of it very well,
Yes.
or we would have never done that. I mean,
I believe that is a true statement.
now I noticed one other thing, getting down to 64, the street sweeper. Now, when can we get that?
The earliest, and this is depending on procurement and how we go through this, I have been having a really hard time finding street sweepers because of the chassis. You can get the body built, you can't get the chassis. The closest we've found is about a year out. I have talked recently with the truck that was here the other day. It was a demo. It goes to anywhere. It's being demoed right now. That truck will be available. It can be purchased, and we could, if everything went through procurement, we could receive ownership of it as early as January. Because we're in such disarray with our streets right now, what we've asked them to do, because it is a demo, nothing to do with purchasing it, they're gonna allow us to use that truck 1 week a month to continue to maintenance. Whether we purchase it or not has nothing to do with the budget. So we're using it now. And if everything goes through, we will submit that to procurement to see if we can, it's a brand new truck. It literally it's just commissioned. So 15 years, 12 to 15 years is what they're saying we can get out of it. I believe the purchase of it versus a used one would be a lot better shape. The truck we have now, we can't get a wire harness for. So we're just stuck in. But just as soon as it gets approved through the budget process, if it goes through in October and it goes through procurement, I have a verbal from them that if everything goes okay, we could possibly,
I think I get more calls about that than anything else, probably, that street sweeper.
That is something that we're putting a ticket system in Public Works because we have so many calls, we have to prioritize them.
Now, I've seen y'all's guys out there with shovels cleaning the curbs by hand.
We've done everything we can do. We've got the broom on front of the skid steer. We've been out there by hand trying to get some of the small stuff. We've been going on over a year now without a street sweeper, and it's showing. And not only do you see it on the road, it's unsightly, but the debris that does get in the storm drain, then it clogs the storm which backs up, causes the flooding. The cost of the maintenance, $300,000 is about $40,000 more than what was proposed last year. The cost of the maintenance alone, it's a cost that if we're going to continue, we got that. The mower boom, what that is that's for right-of-way mowing. We are currently using a 308 excavator with an antiquated piece of equipment that you turn vertical, stick out there. About 2 months ago, we had a stick fly out from under and hit an employee in the hip, broke the skin. We had the safety guy come out and look at it. We locked and tagged it out. We ended up having to go in and put some guards back on it. That piece of equipment cleans right-of-way, so again, they kind of go hand in hand. The 2 mowers that's in there, the 52-inch mower, the first 6 months I was at Public Works, one of the things that I was doing is I was auditing the tickets that come through, and I noticed that the maintenance on 2, possibly 3 of the crews, and they have 2 mowers, sometimes 3, was upwards of $6,000 for maintenance on some of these older mowers. I know we were just talking about the fleet thing. Obviously, maintaining these mowers is expensive. They get used a lot for about 7-8 months out of the year. We put in to purchase 2 this year, and I would look to, if I'm still in this position next year, to continue that, to start rotating that fleet out, because I can tell you the maintenance on them is equivalent to purchasing a new mower. They get used a lot.
And people still buy the old ones on gov deals that way more than they should.
That would be my recommendation. We spent $400 yesterday, approved a PO $400 for just blades. So by the time you go out and you buy a key switch, a seat, a component, any kind of component, a vacuum, whatever it is, after that mower is run and been in service so long, it's almost cheaper to sell it on gov deals and replace it with a new one, because we have a full-time employee that does nothing but maintenance mowers. So it's cause and effect. But those two mowers would be highly recommended, and that is something that I would put in there annually to try and keep that fleet rotated out. The tent is we've already been through that. But other than that, those are the major changes in Public Works.
Okay, anybody else got any questions? We appreciate all you do, we know it's hard to do without a lot of money. Okay, next is public assistance. How much was the increase in the animal shelter?
If you recall last night at the meeting, they wanted to bump it up for their contract that they were gonna do for the, animal shelter, up to $180,000. So the question is whether or not you wanted to change any of that at this point in time, or leave it as it is.
It's gonna go up, so I think we're
I
gonna.
like having a contract so we got something to hold accountable to, because right now we're just giving them money. I mean, there's no accountability. I mean, they provide a service, but if we contract, then we know what to expect.
Right.
And if you get a call, then you can say, hey, this is who you call about it. I know the county, I believe, has a contract with them that they go through, because there's a couple of things I wanted to ask, when we get to the contract, which I haven't seen the contract yet, but, are they charging us just for animals that are within city limits? That's just a question I would have, because, we need to mostly take care of our area. I don't know if we're paying just for those animals or animals that are in the county and the city. But I'd like to review the contract, but if we do that, then that wouldn't probably fall under this anymore, it'd probably go under a certain department. I don't know where exactly it would go if it was under contract. Would that then go under contract services, or? Unless the police department wanted to start doing animal control. Oh, no, quick no there. I don't think you can do it for 180.
Well, aren't that, animal control supposed to go up under the umbrella of the sheriff department?
That's just for the county.
Yeah, and the county, that's what I'm referring to.
When's that supposed to happen?
I think at the end of the year.
Next,
Yeah,
December?
January, something like that, is what I understand. They had a contract with the animal shelter, and I think it was supposed to run out at, I don't know if it's October or January.
Do you know the answer?
The proposal we received on Friday has the Humane Society providing animal control and animal care to animals located only within the city. And it would be a total price of $180K per year. $11,500 per month for animal control, $3,500 per month for animal care.
In that contract, they own the animals, all right? Once it goes through the time period, they're not our animals.
It would be subject to Florida law, so I'm not well versed on animal law.
If I could, if we're gonna do a contract, we have had issues when we have crimes. If there's an animal, we had a homicide where there was a dog in the car. We waited a significant amount of time for animal control to come out. We've had issues with that before, with us calling and them not being responsive. So if we are gonna do a contract, I'd like to see something in there giving them a time frame when they have to respond out, because we have to secure the scene until they can take care of that animal.
There are some solutions.
Yeah, are they communicating, or are you having to deal with them quite a bit, or?
It seems like if we deal with them, it's for a few months, and then maybe, now patrol on regular calls, if we have a vicious dog or something, then, the officer has to stand by and wait for them to come out. During business hours, they're very responsive. It's always the after hours that we have a problem. So,
Yeah, that's what I'd like to see in the
I've had
contract.
problems with them doing business hours as well. It's not easy to get a hold of, get a response from them.
yeah, we've had problems over the years with them coming out. Thank you.
I think that would be good if the contract has set standards.
Okay, fit it if you can.
We could do that. I mean, they give them a ride in the car and drop them off down there.
They don't want to do that anymore.
Do you want that amount to be 180, Mayor?
I think we need to, but if that's where we're headed.
What's that? They said 180. Yes.
Okay. The next one's pretty easy. It's just a wash. How much longer do we have on that contract?
About a couple more years.
I think we're good for a couple of years. We just did it a year or two ago. It was for 5 years and we did it about 2 years ago. I don't think there's much else we can do that. Growth management.
Hi, it's me again. Sorry.
So where do we budget for the expenses for annexations in here?
The only thing that I have moved out of this budget was the 49 account. There was some annexation planning and zoning. It was in other current charges, and I wasn't 100% about it, so I put it under 52. And Ms. Taylor and Ms. Duncan informed me that that was not the correct place, so they were moving it back. Most everything else, with the exception of training, we have implemented some training. And the cost of fuel, and then we had one vehicle. Growth management had a vehicle for the director that went to safety, and now I believe it's at City Hall. It again is pretty straightforward. We didn't add a bunch of stuff to it.
See, health insurance went up about 40, 50,000.
That's because whenever you have new employees, and I think they weren't y'all gonna put a new one in there?
They were
So we've got new ones we have two new ones, and those two new ones didn't have full coverage in the prior year. So since we have them now, that's the full coverage on those new employees.
Anybody got any questions on this? All right.
Thank you.
See what's next. CRA.
question about the revenue piece of that. So I see the, ad valorem dropped again this year.
Yes, the actual, values were down somewhat. They still own the 2010, that district is 0. So there's no money coming in that district at all for the, for the difference. The other two, they were actually down some.
And what's that 750 state grant? Is that toward the Wilson?
Yes. If you notice over on the expenditure side, you also have to look under the capital, infrastructure outlay. You've got $800,000 over there, and the difference between that and the $750,000 in revenue is our portion of the grant that we have to pay.
I saw the other 334 in undesignated. Does that include the sign and the other stuff we talked about, or?
Now, depending on, yes, so depending on what those projects are that are left in there at this point, essentially everything that I do in the CRA is I take anything that's left over after we know what the actual outlay is gonna be of cost, and anything left that's still available, then I put it in that undesignated account, so then that way you can parse it out as you need to throughout the year.
I was talking to Paula Vegas not long ago, when she was doing their budget. And, they had some money in their budget for Wilson Park, but we hadn't gotten to that point yet. So they ended up taking it out of their budget, but she said they would have it when we got ready for it.
Well, if they did that and I'm assuming it's a donation, then we would put it in there at that point as a donation and charge it, put that account, put it to that account for the infrastructure so that you have that additional money to use.
Just want to make sure we don't forget about it when we get to that. Anything else under CRA?
And just to let you know, under the other current charges,
Uh-huh.
this has to do with the Sweetwater housing project, and I don't know how far along we are in that process contractually, but we put an amount in there just kind of like for safekeeping, just in case, because we don't know how far along it's gonna be, that we may have reimbursements on any of that, of what had been talked about before, because you were gonna get tax rebates and things like that, so I don't know how much all that's gonna be, so we just set aside part of that, but if we don't use it, obviously, it can go back into the infrastructure at some point.
Deferment, tax deferment.
Yes.
All right. Anything else under CRA? All right, we'll move to fire.
Chief, I got a question for you.
Yes, sir.
It's just simple. You say you hired, you build your roster.
Yes.
So all the new hires are gonna be at the new location, or it's gonna be between the new and?
So I've already gotten heckled enough for asking every time I come up here for more stuff, so I'm not asking for new employees. So we're just gonna split what we have. I'm gonna put a few guys out there in one fire truck at this time.
Uh-huh.
We have applied for the SAFER grant 2 years ago, actually, and it rolled over this year. So that is government assistance to hire more personnel. If we get that, we'll look at that. But at this time, I'm not requesting any extra manpower.
Okay.
Are you gonna see any reduction in cost in merging the dispatch with the county?
I believe so. In the talks that I've had, we're running the same call. Every time they dispatch us to a call, they send an ambulance. So it's not increasing their call load at all. So in that negotiation, we should be able to reduce our cost, which is roughly 116,000, I believe, somewhere in there. We just gotta look at that when we approach, get that close. I'm also looking at, the $20,000 in there for our medical director. I've been in talks with Century Ambulance about falling under their medical direction, which would reduce that cost as well, because I've offered to house them in our station and charge them rent, which will kind of wash that, so.
Having the new station, does that affect the ISO in any way?
It should affect ISO, yes, because of response times and stuff like that. In
It'd
that
be better.
area. Should be better, yes, sir.
Now, as far as the equipment, I don't know that we bought any big equipment the last year or two. Is all the fire trucks in pretty good shape for a year or two?
They are we're in good shape right now, yes, sir. Again, I'm not asking for anything else.
I just hope this consolidation don't come back and bite us.
Honestly, we've looked at it from every angle. I think that you have entrusted myself and Chief Butler in the positions we're in. And I don't think that we'll put ourselves in a situation that's risky. I don't feel that it's gonna bite us at all.
Yeah, I just don't wanna be on 911 again talking to two dispatchers in an emergency like I've done in the past. I mean, even if there's a cost to that, we gotta fix that.
I agree.
Life and death's too important to play with and have political games over.
And our rates have stayed, the fire assessments are the same.
Correct, yes, sir. We do a study every other year. It's in here this year to do a fire assessment study. And again, that's something they'll report back to council, and council decides whether to go with it or stay the same. So we have to do by law, do it every 2 years.
Yeah. Else got anything? Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Okay, the airport.
The most notable increase is our aviation fuel sales, and that affects our operating supplies. So you can see a remarkable increase there. But as fuel has just gone up tremendously, so has our prices. But yet our margin, we kept the same, so we sold more this year. And so it turns into profit. We also, for this new year, we've requested an additional staff member line service. Right now, our line guys, if there is anyone that takes time off for vacation or if they're out sick, there's overtime. And we'd like to reduce our overtime costs coming into this next year, hopefully with the new personnel. There are a lot that we cut back on this budget. We need to have industrial park, our stormwater infrastructure project, $200,000. We didn't bring forth this year. We just don't have the money to cover it. Massey Ferguson tractor is dead. We're working with one tractor. We don't have an active or an operating GPU, ground power unit for the aircraft. We also have a need for a mulcher to help maintain the trenching and the fence line along the back 40, so to speak, on the perimeter. So we've cut back this budget tremendously. Do you have any other questions?
It's Timco 2-cent gas, it was 26,000, now it's down to 19.
It's whatever HACO.
It's whatever they pay.
They pay,
Yes.
it's a 2 cent per gallon cost that they give to us that was created back in 1993 in their contract.
What's that new miscellaneous 15,000?
That's the oil cells and other
Okay,
products they sell.
And I think previous year, we had zero budget for travel, we had zero budget for training. And then this year, we've added the budget.
that stormwater issue you mentioned, that's on that street that goes around the U Street.
Industrial circle around Homes of Merit. So we finished a project to supplying the water pipes, the stormwater pipes, and we put in new drains. So that's sealed up, but now we may be able to work in-house and get some of that filled in and repave. But right now, we can't lease that property out until that infrastructure is repaired. And as far as our capital construction, I don't know if I'm getting ahead of myself.
Is that tomorrow?
What's that?
The airport capital kind of has a whole separate tab.
We could go ahead and do it tonight. I wish you would have to do it. Where is that? I see it, airport construction. What y'all talking about?
Yeah, we runway 523, that was supposed to be kicked off in May. And from what I hear, the rest of the city is also experiencing asphalt delays with the not being able to get the product. So that's still on hold. It'll carry forward. Taxiway Charlie project and the apron rehab, that will probably also get delayed. We're just in line waiting. And then the airport strategic business plans going forward, which is the component of the airport master plan. And that's been underway.
All right, anybody got any questions about the airport? Thank you very much.
Thank you.
CDBG.
That amount right there, we're just transferring the money out of the cash that was in there from the previous period, when we used that for, I don't remember what the project was, but anyway, we had cash left over there, so we're moving it back to the general fund.
Debt service, pretty straightforward too. Yeah.
And in the sales tax bond, really the only difference in there at this point right now is, of course, the $500,000 that we're talking about from the SAFER grant that Josh had just mentioned a few minutes ago, in conjunction with his information. That has to do with the $500,000 we got in that grant. If we get it this year, then it will be in the surplus. Otherwise, it'll just be grant revenue in the next year. But the other amount is the transfer in from the general fund, and that is for what we're trying to do for this building to make it structurally sound. So overall, we have planned, because we have about $1.5 million, close to $2 million. It'll be $1.5 million that we're transferring $1 million, and we already have $1.5 million in the bond fund, and then the SAFER grant, because that's freed up the funds for us to be able to use that as well for these projects.
Okay. Good, well covered everything, Don. Next is water sewer, so that'd be tomorrow night. Anybody got any questions, comments about it? Covered a lot of money.
Covered a lot. Where's that checkbook?
There we can do. Anybody don't, we will be back tomorrow, same time, same station. Meeting is adjourned.